To be miserable, poor on the street, what we call homeless, or to be crazy and lose your mind? Which one of the two? Obviously he's going to answer, I'd rather be poor than that everybody will call me crazy and laugh at me on the streets. Or the kids will run after me and make fun at me. And the answer of Chazal is, it's better for a person to be full all his life than to be 1 hour wicked in front of God. Why? Before we're talking about the embarrassment that he's subject to when he's going to stand in his trial and they show him all the things that he did, as the Torah says, Ayin ro'ah, there's an eye who watch over you, ve'ozen shomat, and a ear who hears you, ve'chol ma'asecha b'sefer nichtavim, and everything you do has been registered in the book of God. When a person makes sin, slowly, parts of his souls are constantly leaving his body until he can get to a situation that he lost almost all his soul. And he doesn't even realize that he lost basically almost all his spirituality. When a violator of Shabbat losing an object, a wallet or something, there is no obligation for other Jew to return it to him. Why? The Jew is obligated to return a lost object to somebody who keeps Shabbat. Somebody who doesn't keep Shabbat, like the Gentiles or Jews who doesn't keep Shabbat, no discrimination. You don't have an obligation to go and return it, because he excludes himself from the brotherhood of the nation of Israel. Then, what are the laws that are not permitted on Shabbat? Obviously, some of the things we heard, some of them we're not so aware of. I'm going to briefly mention all of them. We're not allowed to plow the ground, to put seeds in the ground, to cut grass, to cut trees, etc., and to make piles from what you cut. If you cut wheat, you make piles on, to prepare to collect it, so you're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to take the bad out of the good, to separate between good and bad by taking the bad out. Not allowed to grind things. This is all general. Of course, we have to learn the exact laws about it, but I'm just giving it in general. We're not allowed to cut wool or things like that, or fruit from the tree. We're not allowed to do laundry. We're not allowed to paint. Also, to knit things, to tie a tie that lasts for long time, to untie, to sew, to rip things in the right measurement, to build anything, to knock down a building, to fix certain things that broke and make it back being proper again, to hunt, to slaughter, to write, to erase, to light fire, to cook, to bake, to take things out of the private territory into the public territory, or from the public territory into the private. And this is most of them that basically applies to our generation. Not that many, because we're not plowing the ground, we're not putting seeds in the ground. Many of the things here is mainly for farmers. But for us, mainly, is not to drive a car, because by turning the engine on, it's like a million cigarettes in one shot, because there's a lot of fire inside. Turning electric light bulbs has fire in it. Once a person told me, how do you know electric is fire? It's electric, it's not fire. The Torah says you should not create any fire. So the answer is, of course it's fire. Let's make a deal. You hold the light bulb for 20 seconds. If you go on fire, I'm right. If you're not going on fire, then you are right, and I'm willing to do what you want me to. No problem. The truth is the truth. Obviously, it's going to go on fire, and inside the light bulbs there's fire, and you shouldn't argue about this. Some people think that the reason we cannot create fire on Shabbat is because it used to be very difficult in the old days. Until you take 2 stones and rub them together, and you have a spark, it takes 10, 20 minutes to light fire. The answer is nonsense. That's not the reason. People did not have electric. They didn't have lights in their houses. So constantly they have oil with candles inside. that lighting the room. So when they wanted fire on Shabbat, all they had to do is just go and take from the existing fire. But even this is not allowed. This has nothing to do with efforts and hard work like some people may think. A person can serve his guest in Shabbat and work very, very hard for 10 hours straight in Shabbat, sweating, breaking his back, carrying chairs inside the house, up and down. It's not violating Shabbat. A person just light one cigarette, it's a serious violation against Hashem. If we review the 10 Commandments, we're going to find something very interesting, disturbing somewhat. But what can we do? The truth, as I said, must be told. The 10 Commandments go from the most critical one to the less critical one. The first one is, I am your God that took you out of Egypt. If you don't know me, obviously the rest is irrelevant. So first, I am your God. What's the second commandment? You should not have any other God but me. Which means it's important to recognize that there is a creator to the world, obviously. But to think there's more than one, it's a big problem. Because that makes each one of them not complete. And I am complete, perfect, I'm not subject to time. I was always here before, I will always be after. I am not dependent on anything you're going to do. I'm perfect with or without it, doesn't matter. And many, many other examples I can give. So the second commandment, you should not have any other God. The third one, you should not swear on the name of God on a false testimony. What is the third one? You should keep the Sabbath. It's an agreement between me and you for eternity. Only the sixth one is you should not kill. Only the sixth one. You should not kill. And everybody understands, a murderer, it's a despicable thing. Who can even think otherwise? If our children will bring a friend to play with them in our house, and the father is a famous murderer all over the news, we will be very offended. We'll tell the kid, hey, you couldn't find a better friend? Even though the kid is completely innocent. Just the fact that his father is a big murderer, we won't feel comfortable around him in our house. But if our son will bring a son of a Mechalel Shabbos, of course we don't see any problem. Almost everybody is Mechalel Shabbos. What's the big deal? The reason is because when we grew up in this environment, this is how we were educated. And we saw everyone around us, our teacher, our professors, they all did that. And nobody ever highlight how horrible is the sin of being Mechalel Shabbat. Nobody knew it. You grew up into it, so it became normal. A person gets used to everything if you grow up with this. But they did tell us that to be a murderer, it's a horrible thing. And if somebody murdered, they spoke very strongly against it. So we grew up knowing a murderer is horrible. Mechalel Shabbat is perfectly fine. That's what we thought. But I want to remind everyone, the truth of God is the truth, regardless of our education or our professor that taught us all this nonsense. It was always here before them, it will be here after them. The fact that until 200 years ago, almost all the Jews in the world, and I'm saying almost all of them, we're talking more than 99%, kept. And if somebody wanted to violate Shabbat one generation ago, 50, 60 years ago, he had to go to the forest to hide, to smoke, and return back to the community. Because people were very embarrassed of this sin. They understood how horrible it is to violate Shabbat. Today, it's a norma, fashion, everywhere. But the truth is always the truth. Just so we're not aware of it, doesn't change the violation, doesn't change the punishment, doesn't change all the instruction that Hashem gave us. It's standing and it was always here. Then the Mekubalim, the Kabbalists, this is what they bring up. Shabbat is equal like the rest of all the mitzvot of the Torah. As we said, המחלל שבת כאילו כופר בכל התורה כולה. Someone who violates Shabbat is equal like violating basically the rest of the Torah. What is the punishment of the karet to the soul? That by doing that, a person is cutting It's like a wire that connects between his soul to God. The soul is a spark from God himself, as the Torah mentioned, that Hashem blew